ואני בר לא אדע, בהמות הייתי עמך, ואני בר לא אדע, בהמות הייתי עמך, ואני בר לא אדע, בהמות הייתי עמך, ואני בר לא אדע, בהמות הייתי עמך. ואני תמיד עמך, ואני תמיד עמך, ואני תמיד עמך, אחזת ביד ימיני, ואני תמיד עמך, ואני תמיד עמך, ואני תמיד עמך, אחזת ביד ימיני. Chavaleim, would you please join me here for a minute? We want to thank you. We were flooded, and there was all kinds of damage. My whole command center had to be all cleaned out, reamed out, as it were. Chavaleim, would you share a little bit what happened and how we are grateful to the people who helped?
We were in Los Angeles when it began raining, and raining and raining and raining. And we came back the day after Yom Kippur, and our good friend Norma had been house sitting and already knew what was going on. By the time we got home, there were 2 sump pumps in a shop vac evacuating water, and there was still water. We came down the next morning, and I remember thinking, how in the world, where do we even begin? And the phone rang. It was a call from the university, from the Jewish Studies Department. Some of you met Stephanie from there, saying, we're coming with volunteers. Our place was streaming with volunteers from the first day. And calls and letters and help of all sorts from everybody, from many, many of you, to an extent that I could not possibly have imagined. The damage was extensive, and the repair even more extensive and expensive, and it could not have happened at all without all of you who donated amounts big and little, and your encouragement, and your holding us in your thoughts and in your prayers and being in touch. And really, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced, and very, very humbling. And I'm so grateful to all of you and to all those who aren't here, and all who even aren't members of Ohalah, who helped us. It was an amazing thing. The state of the place now. The place itself is cleaned and dried and redone where it needed to be redone, and the pod of books, boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of books are now there all over and being unpacked and organized bit by bit. But the command center is restored and is no longer crammed into a tiny room, and all the computers are out and blinking, and the telephones and the fax and the Skype and the possibility to be in touch, as Rabbi Zalman is, with those of you who call or who Skype. And I don't even know how to begin to thank you all.
So let the Rabbi Shalom thank you with whatever brachas you need. Let us say Amen. Amen. When you look at Pirkei Avot, you see a description. Shmona Esra the Chuppah, and it goes on and on and on. Then it talks about what happens when you get to be 90. And it says, Ben Tishim Bashuach. When you are Ben Tishim, you sort of walk bent down. And almost there. It's such a wonderful trip that Rabbi Shalom put me on. I can't tell you how grateful I am for the movie in which I acted in life. It is so amazing. And yet, movies come to an end too. So I want to begin with a point that I need to make. I can no longer be the source for you for teaching, even as a source for experience. My memory doesn't serve me so well. When I look inside of myself and I see that in my senescence, in my old age, my attention is greatly occupied with sheer maintenance of survival. I've tried to share with you what my teachers did not share with me. No one of the Rabbis that I had, the mashpim that I had, told me what it was going to be like, kichlot kochenu, and what happens when we really say, please, al tazvenu. It's very hard to do things alone that we used to be able to do with alacrity. I don't know if you've seen ever a performance of the Dipuk play, but the old rabbi keeps saying, "Oi, I don't have the koyach, and they bring me all the tzoros," and so on and so forth. That's the only voice that I heard where somebody said that I don't have the koyach, and that was, as it were, in a fiction thing. They didn't teach me what it feels like to do the end-of-life work and what their spiritual work in their elder years was about. So I want to make clear to you that for all the love that I feel for you, I can't tell you how every once in a while one of you is doing a goodie, whether it's here leading, or when I see you just walking by and there's a smile of recognition, which brings back conversations that we had, and just the wonderful feeling, there's a lot of love. And yet I cannot respond anymore to requests for guidance or information. It was about 20 years ago when I started to pull back from the helm of our work. It was, I think, in Fort Collins that it became very clear. I was very gratified to see how expertly and competently you have filled that space. I want to give credit to Pope Benedict for having had the seichel and to be a model for spiritual leaders to step down from that place of great responsibility and make room for somebody else, especially somebody else of an altogether different tchunat hanefesh than we had, and to be quiet. Live long. Herr Kardinal Ratzinger, sollst lang leben und gesund sein. There is one thing that I still can model for you and that I hope to do. It is patience with God's process. During my body's infirmities, this time of my life. Sometimes I wish it would go a little faster, and sometimes I wish I could put the brakes on and say, no, it's not so fast. But that's the way it goes. And I have to be patient, so the Rebbeinu Shalom will be patient with you. Orach Yomim Azbeyehu, you made me a promise that I'll be satisfied just right with the amount of time of my life. Ve'arehu b'yeshuati. Thank you. In relation to you and to Aleph, I'm like an older parent who needs to rely on the children he raised and established, who now have to do what they can offer in terms of spiritual and financial support. Some of what I have to say is not going to be new to you. I said it several times before. Sometimes I still would like to see this or that happening, for instance. I'm still concerned about these things. I want to share with you also that despite the fact that I'm currently not too productive, nevertheless, there's a wealth of material that still is of great use to you, that deserves to be edited, published, disseminated. It is so delicious for me to see how the Jewish mainstream has adopted from us things that we pioneered and shaped. Alas, much of what they have taken, they did with less understanding or even less skill. There is a reason for it, we'll get back to it. They saw what we did from the outside, and in a less conscious way, were influenced by it, you know? You see, you like it, you do. But what filled what they saw? The attunement that they didn't get. They got the chitzoniyut, the outer part of that. But in a less unconscious way, they were influenced by it, and they copied only the form without the inner attunement. I urge you to look back at some of my earlier writings and the spiritual liturgical activities of renewal and re-experience them with an intent to attune to what we're doing in a creative way. I tell you, we were so wonderful, so crazy. It was so delicious when we were planning the High Holy Days and other Yom Tovim for Fellowship House Farm, when we did the Wisdom School. And I'm very glad that Dana published the book about the figs, because when we did, even I did the Mashal HaKadmoni, the wisdom school of the primal myth, our reading of Tanakh was so alive, so delicious, and you can still pick that up in that book, so do that if you can. When I had more vigor, I would demonstrate with body movement things. Do you remember Ozer Yisrael Bigabor? Rah! Do you remember that? Maybe not. But when we did the Birchot HaShachar with acting in them, feeling the Malbish HaChumim and Pokeach Ivrim, I can see. It was so wonderful what we did. You get older, you can't jump around like this some more. Yeah. So my experiential explorations were, in those days, much less limited. No longer can I model for you the various kinds of body movement that would embrace the prayer experience. Nor did I work as much as I did early on the things we could do on the level of transpersonal sociology. It was always something that when we are in a group, and the group mind, the Shechina is there, to be able to access the manishtana between the individual and what happens in the group, and to understand it and to feel it. How wonderful that is when you can work with the group mind. So I have to begin with the Shechianu. I'm really glad to be able to to be with you after all I had to deal with medically. At the same time, I want to mention the valiant work done by Rabbi Netanel with the books that he has edited and published. He has given me a great deal of joy, and that's part of the Shehecheyanu. So is Dana Dinsworth's book, Rabbi Zalman Schachter-Shalomi. It's a remarkable job. She not only transcribed the material, but found a very good and both scholarly and easily accessible way for people to read the amazing things we did then under the name of Mashallah Kadmoni, the primal myth. And the work of spiritual eldering. Lots of material that I knew needed to come in, but it couldn't come in because I hadn't experienced it yet. What happens? I described what to do in October and November, but I couldn't describe December because I wasn't there yet. Now, the December will be the afterword on the new edition of the book, and there will be a new introduction to bring us up to date. But that's sort of the straight stuff. I'm not smiling. I'm grinning from ear to ear about Sara Davidson, with a brilliant mind and feeling heart, completed a book based on our conversations about end-of-life issues called the December Project. Please tell us something.
This book is a labor of love. And when we started it, we wanted to expand the reach of Rabbi Zalman's teachings, specifically about the December work. And we also wanted to expand awareness of Jewish renewal into the larger community. So we created a book that actually reads like an adventure story. You want to keep turning the pages. And if you'd like to join us in this project of expanding awareness, we would love it if you would pre-order the book now, because then, on the day that it's published, a lot of orders go through at once, and that causes Amazon and other sellers to give it a high ranking and promote it more, so it can reach that wider audience. And as a bonus, you will get an MP3, a 20-minute program that we recorded recently, and I have to tell you, it captures the essence of Reb Zalman. He sings, he talks with me about the December work, and he leads a meditation on letting go. This is all new material. It's not in the book. I don't think he's talked about it here. So go to saradavidson.com, no H in Sarah, just saradavidson.com. There's a link to buy the book, and there's also a link to get the free MP3. So if you do it now, you will right away be able to start enjoying that wonderful MP3, and you'll be helping us in spreading the word. And half the proceeds from the book go to support Reb Zalman's work.
Thank you.
I want to say it's a privilege to be here and be part of this movement, and I honor the extraordinary work that all of you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Time has given me a chance to reflect a lot, to evaluate, to see what it was that you and I have done over the years. And I'm glad that I was able to be guided to make room for the next echelon. Some of you make fun of me. Where are you, Daniel? About the many times I've retired. But there is Tzimtzum Arishon, but I was doing little Tzimtzum Lach. So that you were able to come in and find your place, the niche that you wanted to occupy, that you were being delegated to. More and more of you started to guide Ohalah and to deal with the issues we're facing. And what a remarkable job Rabbi Schachter-Shalomi did with keeping the rabbinic training online good. You know, there's a person who has been writing theology about my work. Shaul Maggid, he's wonderful, he's good. But he is in the left brain mostly. And he didn't get something that is essential. I'm not a theologian, I'm a pastor. And I want to say this about you, Rabbi Schachter-Shalomi, that yes, you're a dean, but you're also a pastor of all the people that came through, whose hands you had to hold, to guide, and to say, yes, this is good what you want to do, but take a look, you might be able to do it even better. You have such a good way of helping people. And all the inyanim that you need in your life, may you be helped, and all the menias v'ikurim be taken out of your way. Amen. And I also want to say that those of you who are the next echelon, who have done so well coming in and doing what was necessary during this time, should also take the model seriously and decide when it is right for you to draw back, to pull back, and let the next people, the next group come in. Because, what can I tell you? My musical geschäft stopped with the Moody Blues. You know? George Harrison, Really Wanna Love You, God, you know, that's my stuff. I have no idea whatsoever what the kids are listening to. But there is something, the Shechina, Rav Nachman keeps on saying that the Shechina even speaks through the songs and the poems of the people who are not Jewish, so you have to pay attention to. There is new stuff happening, and if you are not emotionally in tune with it, it is time that you make room for the next group. So this is the way you're going to find out what real renewal happens, because something else will take the place of what the Shechina has in mind. Tu B'Shvat. How wonderful. The new ring is begins to grow underneath the bark. The growing edge, the life of the tree for this year. And what was last year's growing edge becomes now another ring on the wood. Yes, it's good to have the wood, because if a tree didn't have the wood that is dead, that's to say there is really not any more life in it as it was before. However, that the wind shouldn't be able to break it down, you need to have the old rings. When I was at Muir Woods and I could see a log, the root of a redwood tree that had been cut, and you could see the rings, and then they would show you, over here is where the Magna Carta was written. What an amazing thing to be able to see ring after ring after ring. So new rings are coming in for us too, to allow the growing edge to be juicy and to bring out the new leaves and the new blossoms. So this is something that the Vaad will also have to pay attention to, because there are new needs that are arising and new people who want to become rabbis. I don't know what's going to happen to shuls. We've heard about the mega trends and all that. There will be more rabbis out of work as more shuls are consolidating. The price of Sefer Torah is going to go down because people have too many of them now. It's strange to say, whatever still is going to be of the great shuls will be Mazel Tov facilities. for bar mitzvahs, for ofro, for this and that. During the week, very few people come to daven. What a difference there is between BJ and Roman, where people come because they want to come, because they feel energy is there. And where energy is, and there's an updraft, Sula Mutzav Artsa, Varosha Magia Shemaima, Malach Elikim, Olim V'Yordim Ba. What a wonderful thing that is. So wherever we have a minyan, people are attracted to come to that minyan because they know there's energy there. These days, I've become a Pashat Yid. I feel much less than a Rebbe. I feel a lot more like an Elta Zayda, not only a Zayda, a great-grandfather, who all the same is a simple Jew. So, I asked you to call me Zayda quite a while ago. But now I've been given the shofar to blow, so I want to blow a few notes that I believe are important and contain some of my concerns. People have asked, have you named a successor? When my tour of duty is over, the one who deployed me will find others to deploy. Someone who will be merutza lekahal. That's to say, the kahal will say, yes, tihei lanu dekatzin. You guide us. So I will not name a successor. God has blessed me, or burdened me with a vision that was, in past years, 35 years ahead of the rest of the pack. But now, my event horizon has shrunk. It does certainly not extend be'achrit yamai after I'm gone. So when you will choose a person who you will consult, make sure that you've been directed by a mashpia, that in your work, you see, if you don't do the inner work, what happens is everything about faith and belief gets rusty. If you don't do the inner work, you can't help but become a cynic. There's nothing to Yiddishkeit, you'll say. Why? Because it's not happening to you. But why is it not happening to you? You're not doing the work. Doing the work is not necessarily, it has to be a great, extraordinary, heroic measure. When Rav Nachman was teaching us about Hitbodedut, in that wonderful movie, Ushpizin, where you saw this chassid going into the woods and having it out with the Rebbeinu Shalom, you know? Baruch Hashem, I don't have at this point great complaints, but when I drive, I have a sense that the Rebbeinu Shalom in blue jeans is sitting in the passenger seat and I can just talk. Even that kind of thing of having a daily conversation with the Holy Shekhinah in that way is what keeps you on track, what will make sure that the right hemisphere will also have something to say, that the heart will also have something to say, and then the theology that you need is going to make sense. Used to be, in my day when I was in Chabad, if you went to see a different Rebbe, it was considered to be adultery. How dare you? Aren't you happy that you have your Rebbe? How could you go to somebody else? But you know what? I didn't listen to them. it was wonderful to be able to go be with the Baba, with the Amshinava, to study Nesiv Sholem, to go and see the Slonim Rebbe. I want to say, in the time of the Baal Shem Tov, you didn't choose a Rebbe for everything, a wholesale Rebbe. You chose a Rebbe for this Midah Tova, you learned it from this one. And this aspect of Avodat Hashem, you learned from that one. So keep that in mind, that it's kosher to learn. And sometimes you will also go to a Rebbe outside of our covenant. Oh, God rest his soul, make him really wichtig when I think of Howard Thurman and the wonderful things I learned from him and the chutzpah that I got to really not be ashamed to love God. So, from whom, make sure you learn from everyone who can teach. I want to say, yeah, and when you go to other Rebbes, what should you look for? Almost if you can close your eyes and locate in your body the way he makes Kiddush. You know what I'm saying? When saying Torah, see if you can locate in your body while your mind is following what you're here to locate in your body. Because when you are attuned to the attunement of the teacher, then the words make sense. And if you're not attuned, the words are empty like straw, they don't carry anything. So what we are learning mostly is from attunement. I wish I was not tired right now. Well, it's a delicious tired, mind you, from all the good things that you had to do, that you did, and that I was with you. But if I could go for a moment into a high attunement, I'd like you to try and see if you can meet me there, okay? I'll do my best.
ואני תמיד עמך, ואני תמיד עמך, ואני תמיד עמך, אחזת ביד ימיני, ואני תמיד עמך, ואני תמיד עמך, ואני תמיד עמך, אחזת ביד ימיני.
In the late 70s, there was a Lazy Man's Guide for Enlightenment. You remember that book?
So well. Yes, I do so well.
Yeah. It's wonderful. We used to say in those days, if anybody doesn't make it this time around, then he's stupid. I want to say, if you don't have a daily shiur today, you're stupid. There is a wonderful app called Uvelechta Chavadera. And if you don't have it, you should get it. I do my Chokli Israel shiur every day there. I do my day of Tehillim every day. There's an app that I find for the daily shir in Tanya. If I need to look something up, I go and look Tanakh according to the Parshanut, and it's so wonderful to find the Kli Yakar, for instance, on a Pasuk. All this is available today. No excuses, really. No excuses. Do this as a shiur for yourself and not for what you want to prepare to use with other people. I know you sit down and you plan, you want to have a sermon, you want to have this, you want to do that, but it's also very important to feed your own neshama and to look, let the curiosity go, oh, how wonderful it was about your sefer today, huh? I never knew about that. Thank you, Hanati Barrett. So, when you sit in your study, little insights are going to come. I'm preparing right now on my computer what do you call it? A file holder that says Siddur tweets. Malchutcha, Malchut Kol Olamim. Even the rocks and the stones, all that is your Malchut. Umemshaltecha, that you feel that you are actually being the one who rules us, that depends b'chol dor v'dor. Every generation does it differently. You know, you can't help it. You look in the Siddur with an open heart and you get to see things. One thing that gave me such wonderful joy, I was saying, Hineni, Muchan, Umezuman. Good? And then I got it. If I am making myself present, Hineni, here I am. And I say, I'm Muchan, I'm saying Cain. Remember that in Muchan is Cain. I'm saying yes to what's about to come. And I thank you, Rabbi Shalom, for having invited me. I'm Mizuman, Muzman. So, Hineni, I make myself present. I make myself positive. And I feel I'm not talking to the wall. There is the one who has invited me. There is this essay that I wrote about why theologians have such trouble with prayer. If you haven't gotten a copy, try and find out, we'll put it on our website. So when you have these little Chidushei Torah, it is not a bad interruption in the middle of davening. Because it's, when people say, why doesn't God answer my prayer? In the middle of davening, I remember that I owe somebody some money, I have to pay it back. That was God's answer to my prayer. So treat these things not as machshavot zarot, but during the week, have a piece of paper ready and a pencil marked down. And so many good insights are going to come to you when you are saying in the daven, I'm present, I'm positive, and I feel invited. Make sure to mark down your own insights, your Chidushei Torah. As I was saying before, it's not like Nosson Siegel used to sing, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov used to say, friends, do not despair, for a difficult time has come upon us. Joy must fill the air, because a difficult time is going to come. And we need to create more love, more mutual support for each other. It's essential. Because of the livelihood and market issues, there may even become friction between chaverim. But I ask you, don't go fishing in somebody else's pond. Use your best forgiving with each other. If you see somebody is doing well, be glad. Let you ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha fill you with gladness. Every once in a while there are exchanges on our list where people don't honor each other's point of view. And then they get a little bit testy. I want to tell you something, when you get really upset because somebody said this and said that and you shouldn't have said it, check inside, because the likelihood is that deep down inside you have that voice and you've been saying to that, your own voice, no, I don't want to hear that. And when somebody else has said, then the no-nos come out at the other person. Give an ear, recognize that Elu ve'elu, we've been given two eyes. Look at the other's point of view with some warmth. What's so wonderful? David Zaslav told me one day that he is a Republican. And I was so shocked to hear that. He doesn't look like him. But you know what I did? I sat down with him and I said, please imagine that you are trying to gain me as a member to see things from the Republican point of view. It was so wonderful to hear. As far as this country is concerned, I sent something in to the Yes people, the magazine. Could you imagine if the Senate chamber would be in a circle and that the senators would have to sit according to their birthdays in the year? And then all of a sudden the Arises would sit with the Arises and the Tauruses with the Tauruses. What a difference it would make for guiding our country in a more organismic way. So, more civility, honor each other, Elu ve'elu. Also create a gemilat chesed for each other. Because full-time rabbinic posts are not likely to be in the future when many congregations merge with each other. So it may be that although many of you were doing what Chabala would always tell your Talmidim that besides being rabbis, they should be able to have another way of gaining a living, so that they could have a drop-dead option when somebody in the shul pushes them too hard. That they don't have to give up their values. But you may find that until the person who now can no longer gain livelihood as a rabbi gets established, may need to borrow a gemilat chesed for a time. When David was talking last night, and I saw how many balls he has in the air to juggle. I wanted to collect from each one of you 1 minute and give him several hours so that he should be able to sit back sometime and take a breath. It's not only he. Sometimes when there are difficult moments, to be able to know that in the Otsar of Ohalah, there is a deposit of goodwill that you can reach in. So Cholila v'chas, if there is going to be a bad situation, reach into that. So whichever way you want to do it, the best way would be when you say Allah Tzadikim v'Ala Chasidim in the Amida, to say, and today Rabbi Shalom, I want to put in some energy that if any of the Chaverim needs some energy, a boost, they should be able to draw on that. That's, I think, should be part of the membership requirement. I believe that we could best find compatible colleagues with whom we could share how we would want to restructure the synagogue in our day, and maybe synagogue isn't the right word anymore. Just as Mordechai Kaplan Shalom did in his day, he called it a Jewish center. He didn't want to call it a shul. There are more people in the world who claim to be spiritual and not religious. Many of these, the Pew report shows you, many of these identify with being Jewish. And by that they mean cultural and ethnic identification. So we have to find ways to serve them and to enhance and focus their spirituality. Your spiritual good, what's your spiritual practice? It's really important to, not to challenge them, but to say, oh, that's wonderful, and your spiritual practice is, you know, to elicit. It's important to pay attention to outreach, because there are so many people who identify with being Jewish without much content. And we need to find a way to connect with them. And I want to tell you something. We've been a secret far too long. When I read the Hadassah magazine or Moment magazine, and I see lots of wonderful books being pointed at, and I never see one of ours. Why? Because we never put any money into advertisement. Where's Chaim Zev? He may have gone already.
No, it's here.
You're here. Ah, there was an advertisement in a New York tabloid paper that said, Et achai anochi mebakesh. I'm looking for my brothers. Joseph Gelberman, Zechar Levracha, advertised there. And I wrote him right away a fan letter. And we were friends during his lifetime because he did something very good. He didn't paint inside the lines. He painted not only outside, far outside of the lines. And he did a great, amazing job. Zechar Levracha. So we need to put outreach out. If he hadn't advertised, I wouldn't have known about him. People don't know about us. Now, we have been so taught that teaching things about Yiddishkeit, you address the left hemisphere. And it doesn't work. There are things that touch and stimulate people's nonverbal unconscious from deeply buried memories of special foods, melodies, and practices. A story. I lived in Fall River at that time. And Fegel Zechar Levracha, who was my wife then, made 120 kreplach. It was before Yom Kippur, and I had this little shul, but I had a number of people who were friends. So I went around from one to another and left them some kreplach. And they said, what's this about? And I said, that's for the meal before Yom Kippur, so you'll be able to fast better. The wife of one of these people came back later on to tell me that her husband had never fasted on Yom Kippur, but this year he fasted. And he says, how could I not fast after I ate a keppel? Now, what am I trying to say? I didn't talk to him about atonement, atonement, and this and that, you know. But the kreppel had something in his DNA that touched us. See what you can do to think wider than the left hemisphere and see what kind of taste situations you can give him. Don't only think about Ashkenazi Jews. You know, if I were to be of Moroccan descent and somebody gives me Galiciana gefilte fish, I would think that's not Jewish. Okay, so you really have to do things with that feeling of what they need. Special foods, melodies, practices. So we find the means to expose people to what they're hungry for in their deep, pre-conscious memories that will still instill in them a desire that will fill them with Jewish endorphins. What's a Jewish endorphin? No, let me hear. Come on, a good So there are some things that will help that in people who will say, I don't believe in God, but I do believe in okay? We need a speakers bureau. It's not only advertisement, but we need a speakers bureau. So I want to urge Ohalah to ask a small amount from all its members to set up the right kind of person who will be in charge of a speakers bureau. When I earlier traveled to the East Coast, the West Coast, it was because from time to time the Jewish Welfare Board of B'nai Brit served as the agency to get me gigs. And I would like us to create our own agency for reaching out and getting gigs for the people who presented here. If I look at the catalog of what we gave out here, or what we give out at the Kala, it is so remarkable and so good. Let's bring this out into the world, and the person involved in the Speakers Bureau should work very closely with, find out from people who are in advertising who might give us some pro bono ideas of how to be able to do that better. Especially the people who are now in the VAD, who have been involved in training rabbis. They would be the best speakers we could send out because they really know what they're talking about. And when people hear, they may say, I thought that too, you know. Very often that's what happened. You put out a good idea and they say, yeah, I've been thinking about that, and that's what it is. Rabbi Zalman Schachter-Shalomi used to tell us, why is it that the Malach is teaching us in the mother's womb and then we get to forget it all? What's the point of teaching us in the first place? And he said, when somebody teaches us and we say, I knew it all along, that is what the Malach taught me. The sense I knew it all along. And you can be midwives for I knew it all along. What I'm about to say, I don't need to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Don't forget we are part of Klal Yisrael. Now it is more than ever when even liberal Orthodox people are also chafing under the oppression of the Haredi and transigents. We have many colleagues in Klal Yisrael whose ethos is much closer to ours. When you look among Reconstructionist conservative colleagues in Reform, even a little bit in Orthodoxy, they have adapted what we pointed out in worship and meditation and ritual. Ours is a beta version of what Klal Yisrael needs. In a beta version, not everything that's being tried is going to be finally adopted. But we have to continue to experiment, to experience, so that the things that come from the past and see how can they be updated and shaped. And this way the past can serve us in the present and in the future. And when we realize that there are certain things that cannot be updated, and we open ourselves to the inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh, and ask what is it that the future needs, then we learn in the present to see what we need to create All this is happening with Klal Yisrael. We are not separate from Klal Yisrael. Conversion, personal issues of law and halacha, be careful. We have to make sure that this will be okay with Klal Yisrael. There are some people who are biologically not Jewish, who enjoy their fellowship with us. We should be open to them in terms of Ger Toshav as our affiliates. And it was so wonderful when Chava Bele did her presentation, Gesund soll sie sein. And we'll have to start thinking about what to do in situations. Because in the past, when people talked intermarriage, they always knew that they're going to lose the Jewish partner. Nowadays, it feels the other way around. That the other partner comes to us and is willing to raise children Jewish, but we have to do a lot of halachic homework to see under what circumstances and with what means can we bind a ger toshav to someone who's biologically Jewish. We don't have that yet, and you can't play with this. You have to pay attention and see what we can do. I'd like you to practice hospitality to colleagues both inside and outside of Ohalah. When you notice other people who have copied and emulated what we have pioneered, see it as in a sense of success and not failure. And if you can help them not only to take the externals but also the pneumiut, you'll have done the right things for yourself and for others. How wonderful it was when the Reform people had this meeting in New York, and our people were there presenting, and I'm very happy for that. I made sure to call Arnie Eisen at JTS at one point and to tell him that if he really would like to bring life into his school, these are the people to get in touch with and to employ and to show them. You can't be a seminary today without Davenology, and you can't be a seminary today without having ecumenism. It's a shanda to go out into the world, and there isn't a single, the only one who was ever doing something about Christianity was Samuel Sandwell at HUC, making sure that the people who were studying should at least know what's written in the Gospels so they could have a conversation with somebody else. It's very important to teach the other things. So invite people to the home. So make sure you practice your own daily avodah so that your words won't be empty. Daven b'talis and film. It's the best preparation to deal with adaptation of halacha. If you want to change anything in halacha, put on a talis, put on the film, and then think about it, which way it should go. It's very important. This is the way that you can then share with the people with whom we have a consensus of commitment. But there's some boundaries that I cannot give my agreement to cross. Not too long ago, there was a conversation on our list about circumcision. Please remember, we are dealing with something that's at the center of our covenant. Just as I wouldn't want to move from Shabbos to Wednesday, I don't want to give up Brit. We cannot make ourselves separate from Klal Yisrael and create things that are not able to be integrated into Klal Yisrael. The immune response of Klal Yisrael is going to be that we are no longer part of it if we do these things. Please remember, we're still members of the covenant. Atahu Adonai, Elohim, Asher becharta be'Avraham, ve'otzeita mi'ukazdim, ve'samta shmo Avraham, u'matzata et l'rabo neman lefanecha, ve'charoti ma'abrit. If we want to say Elohei Avraham, it's really important. What we need to do is make sure that the Mohalot who are around, who learned from Tzipporah, the wife of Moshe Rabbeinu, some of them are very, I would say most of them are very good, and a mother feels so much better to give over the child for bris by a mohelet. Sometimes you can't go out. Very often, this is for me, I have to daven b'yechidas at home. During the week, there are very seldom that you can find a regular minyan. I'm so glad that the Thursday morning minyan at Bonne Shalom. It's a delight to come and daven there and be with people. I wish it were more often. But if you can't do daven with the inner minyan. So when doing Hinani Mucharam Zuman, like I was talking to you before, you make yourself present. And you make sure that when you ask, is my chesed here? Yes. Is my gvura here? Yes. Make sure, this was so beautiful, what Chana Tiferet did this morning with the body and bringing it all in. Not only beautiful, it was right. It's very important that on the issue of what's public good for Tikkun Olam, we should give an honest ear for what our pioneers, Reb Art and Reb Michael, have shared with us. Sometimes I have a feeling that we feel that we've heard enough from them. I think we may not have heard enough from them. Deep, deep. And Chassidus used to say, it's not only Herren, it's der Herren. It has something with realization. And I would like to see some people from our group, younger people, to get into that area that they have been in, because they too are getting older. I feel sad about the fact that not many of you have paid attention to the liturgical innovations that I have made. It was so nice to hear from Rabbi Lopatin about Shelo Asanu with a Vav. But how many of you are still saying Yismach Moshe Velo Natata Hashem Elokeinu Lo Der Pesilim? I'm not going to ask you to show hands. But why have you not paid attention to the one that said, to the tefillah that said, Ata Natata V'levenu Shvechevra Ratzon Lishbot Yom Echad B'Shavua. Ashreinu, Ma Tov Chelkeinu Manayim Gavoleinu, Ashreinu Shanu Shoftim Bashvi Lekayim, Ma Shegazart Aleinu B'Toratecha, Al Yidei Moshe Avdecha V'Pi Avadecha Kamo. V'shamu B'nei Yisrael, Shabbat Laz, Shabbat Tam Britonu, B'nei Yuvein B'nei Yisrael Tilona, Ki Sheshet Yamim Asa Adonai Et HaShamayim V'et Haaretz V'yom HaShvi Shabbat V'Nabash. ועל ידי עבדיך הנביאים כתוב לאמור, אם תשם לשבת רגליך, עשות חפציך ביום קודשי, וקראת לשבת עונג, לקדושת מכובד, וכיבדתם לעשות דרכיך, בצור חפצך ודבר טוב. אז תיתני קו אדוני, והרכבתיך על במת הארץ, ואכלתיך נחלת יעקב אביך, כי פי אדוני דיבר. יהי רצון לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי הורינו, שנזכה ליום שכולו שבת, ואז ינוחו בו כל יגיע כוח, וישמחו במלכותך שומרי Shabbos, and then going to the end. Have you heard why this is a... Not yet. I'll be glad to hear that. So look at those emendations or the changes that I made. There's a good reason. So when you adapt something for yourself, do that. There are musafim without sacrifices that are available. Take a good look at the website, www. Jewish Renewal Hasidus, is Hasidus spelled HASIDUS.org/WordPress. That's where we have wonderful things. For instance, if you want to follow the yortsides of various Rabbis and their teachings, there are now posted the yortsides of Rabbis for the month of Shvat. You can find it. Also make sure that you're trying to adapt many of the rabbinic boilerplates that we have produced. And if you make any changes, do it with awareness of why we chose that way. And if you have good reason to change it, you can. Very often we are being confronted with people who say, I'd like to have this ketubah. And they're thinking of a beautiful thing that's framed that's going to hang in there. But there's no kinyan in there. There's only these nice aspirations, I'll love you forever, and so on and so forth. A ketubah needs to have a kinyan in it. That's why I'm saying, look at the boilerplate. But I believe, nowadays, I want to tell a couple, I don't want to do your wedding until you have had a legal prenuptial agreement. If you study ketubot, then you know what a ketubah was supposed to be. It was there to protect. So, make sure that that is. Make sure that you use the Tanai Kedushin Unesuin to make sure that when terrible things happen to one or the other of the people, that they are not locked in igun, they are not agunot. Pay attention to these things. I've made innovations in Gittin and counter Gittin and get the Horaita. And pay attention to that. Our Dayan, Rabbi Daniel, is now training several other people to do the work in this area. When you create something new, figure out on what basis do you create it, and that you can find in the boilerplate. So I shared with you some of my concerns, and I hope that you will exceed Pishnayim what I have done for Klal Yisrael. I'm not finished yet, I have still a shtickle, but your hand came up. Let me hear what you want to say.
I wanted to say a statement of reassurance.
Pardon?
Reassurance. Reassurance for you.
Okay.
That you should know that in Kol Koreh, and everybody here who wants it, your Shachrit is present. I did another version of it. Both of them are present in Kol Koreh. And a lot of your old stuff that you taught, I have it all. I have the whole Aleph collection. We're slowly digitizing it and giving it out to people to listen to so we can catalog it and start printing it.
I am very happy that you tell me that. I'm happy that you hear that. You know from whom you have to get what you need to get. That was the hand that was up. Thank you. So, where is my friend? Are you getting ready? Yeah. So I pray for all of you to have good health, harmonious family life, spiritual growth, and a little bit more, the basic prosperity. To have enough to leave enough for your old age and for your children's higher education. Even deeper and stronger is my prayer that the Holy Shekhinah suffuse you with her loving and healing presence, so that the purpose for which you are being deployed will fulfill itself through you with joy and with ease. Amen. Amen. Would you please do it together? Go ahead.
We pray that the
power residing in God's great name be increased.
Hold on. This is Reb Zalman's Kaddish to Rabbanan. I think it'd be really appropriate if we all wrote it.
Thank you.
Let's do that again.
And rhythmic so it can be heard. Good.
Say that.
We pray that the power residing in God's great name be increased and made sacred in this world, which God created freely in order to preside in it, and increase its freeing power, and bring about the Messianic era. May this happen during your lifetime and during the lifetime of all of us living now, the house of Israel. May this happen soon, without delay, and by saying, Amen. We express our agreement and hope. May that immense power residing in God's great name flow freely into our world and in worlds beyond.
Yehei Shemei Rabbah
May that great name, that sacred energy, be shaped and made effective, and the acknowledged be given the right honor, and be seen as beautiful and elevating, and bring jubilation, way beyond our input of worshipful song and praise, which we express in this world as our agreement and hope. Amen. Please accept our petition for all of Israel, for our teachers and their students, and the students of their students. Indeed, for all those who invest themselves in Torah, be it here or in any other location. This is what we ask for them, as well as for us. Blessings in all endeavors, grace, kindness, and compassion, long, healthy life, and ample income, as well as release from unnecessary burdens. May this be granted by you, God, as you embrace all creation, as we express our agreement and hope. Amen. May that endless peace that heaven can release for us bring about the good life for us and for all Israel, as we express our agreement and hope. Amen. You who harmonize it all on the highest planes, bring harmony and peace to us, to all Israel, and all sentient beings, as we express our agreement and hope. Amen.
So now it's going to be the circle for saying goodbye, doing Tfilat HaDerech, and give each other hugs.